welcome everyone to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 245 and today's topic is surfing. Have you ever gone surfing before? Do you know anyone that surfs every summer or even travels abroad to go surfing? If you have not had the chance to go surfing, because there aren't many places where you could actually surf in Korea, I'm sure you've been to water parks. Now, at certain water parks, they do have these sections where you can kind of surf. They don't have these large surfing boards, but they do have mini ones or half-sized surfing boards that you can surf on. That's quite fun. I've tried it myself. I was able to stand on that surfing board for about 7-8 seconds, but then again, of course, I fell into the water. Surfing can be a lot of fun. It's very dynamic. It's a very thrilling and energetic sport that people love to enjoy, especially out in the ocean. Well, if you haven't tried it, try hitting the beach sometime soon to try surfing. Okay, let's talk about surfing today. Let's begin with Actual Talk.
Water sports are becoming really popular in Korea. I'm wondering when people will start surfing.
Well, it's funny you say that because it seems to have really picked up as a trend with the young people these days. I've seen lots of shops springing up in Gangwon-do, for example.
Okay.
I think it's become really trendy.
What kind of surfing? Just regular standard surfing? Because I know there's different things you can do. You can do windsurfing with kind of like a mini sail, and then there's kite surfing. What kind of surfing are they doing?
I think it's a straight up, normal board surfing where, you're just getting one person gets up on a board and goes up on a wave. I'm not so sure about the other forms, but definitely the shops I've sort of been through, they seem to have a lot of boards on for sale and the whole sort of mini culture, mini underground culture of people wanting to surf.
Right, because surfing culture is quite huge. I mean, it's dynamic. There's music, that's surfing music, there's style and everything like that. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of influences the style of clothing, whether music taste changes or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, worldwide it's a big trend, but I think it's only been relatively recently that it's sort of really picked up in Korea.
Right.
The problem here is I don't think we have massive waves.
Right.
But and also the temperature up the north part of the coast is obviously quite cold, and the further south you go, the waves aren't so good, I heard. Yeah,
is there anywhere that has good waves? Or?
Well, I think it sort of varies. There are some good parts. I mean, there are people who are even on Jeju and Busan who go surfing. But I don't know quite the quality of it. But I think the part of the fun is just being with other people who are into the same thing.
Right, enjoying the outdoors and the ocean.
Totally.
Today's Actual Talk conversation is, of course, about surfing, as it is our topic. Let's find out what they've mentioned in the conversation. Now, Mary began by saying, water sports are becoming really popular in Korea. You might have even heard water sports is becoming really popular in Korea, because if you were to talk about water sports in general as a group of all different kinds of water sports, you can say water sports is becoming popular. But the point is that water sports, all kinds of water sports, are becoming popular in Korea. I'm wondering when people will start surfing. So she's focusing on surfing. She's wondering when people will really begin to surf in Korea. There are surfers in Korea, but it's not that common. Well, Eugene says, well, it's funny you say that because it seems to have really picked up as a trend with the young people these days. So he's saying it seems as though, or it seems to have. He's saying it looks like. He's not saying definitely it has, but he says it feels like, it looks like. I think it has picked up as a trend with the young people these days. We're talking about the young generation, younger people. If you see that something picked up as a trend or picked up, you're saying that it has become stronger, or perhaps you're saying that it has started or begun to become popular. Okay, it started to become a trend. It has picked up as a trend among young people. I've seen lots of shops springing up in Gangwon-do, for example. He says, spring up. That's our pattern for today as well. Now, if something springs up, what could it mean? A coffee shop or coffee shops can spring up. Convenience stores can spring up. Or let's say convenience store, that's too common. What's unique? Let's say brunch restaurants. Brunch places are springing up these days. Now, to spring up means to develop or to grow. But even better, especially in this case, we're saying that more and more are starting to appear. They're opening, okay? So many shops, a lot of these shops are springing up in Gangwon-do. Many shops that specialize in surfing boards, for example, are opening up in Gangwon-do. I think it's become really trendy. Okay, so it's kind of become a trend, or it is becoming a trend. Mary says, okay, what kind of surfing are you talking about? Just regular, standard surfing? You can do wind surfing with a mini sail, and then there's kite surfing. What kind of surfing are they doing? So let's check out what Mary has said. Now, Eugene has mentioned something about how he thinks that surfing is becoming a trend. More and more of the younger generation or younger people are beginning to start to surf these days. And he says, for example, in Gangwon-do, in that area, he has seen a lot of surfing shops or surf shops springing up, opening up. So she says, okay, what kind of surfing? Is it just the standard surfing that we are familiar with? Or are you talking about wind surfing or even kite surfing? A lot of people windsurf. I've seen plenty of people windsurf in especially the Han River area. People do windsurf in the Han River, but kite surfing, it's a type of surfing where you actually use a kite. Does it mean that you float up in the air and you fall into the ocean or the lake or the river? I think that's what she's talking about. So she says, once again, what are they doing? What kind of surfing are you talking about? Now, Eugene says, I think it's the straight up, normal board surfing where one person gets up on a board and goes up on a wave. Okay, here we go. I think it's the straight up normal board surfing. Straight up. Straight up. When would you use straight up? Straight up, some synonyms may be genuine, honest, for example. But straight up is used in conversation, especially when you want to emphasize that you are being honest about something. Simply put is maybe a similar synonym. So he says, I think it's the straight up normal board surfing. It's the simple normal board surfing where one person gets up, meaning stands up on a board, and goes up on a wave, meaning rides waves. I'm not so sure about the other forms, but definitely the shops he's mentioned in Gangwon-do area seem to have a lot of boards for sale. Boards for sale basically means that these boards are for sale. Okay, they're out there for people to buy. So he's talking about the shops that sell boards to their customers. Surfing culture is quite huge, meaning it's very big, it's popular, it's dynamic. Dynamic means it's very powerful. It's got a lot of force and energy. It's very energetic. There's surfing music, there's style, and everything like that. So when it comes to surfing, there's surfing music, there's surfing clothes. There are all different kinds of things that surfers would wear or buy. And she says, it will be interesting to see how it influences the style of clothing. Okay? It would also be interesting to see whether music changes, music taste changes, or anything like that. I don't think that just because the surfing culture is becoming trendy and more popular that it's going to influence people's way of dressing or their tastes in music, but it's definitely going to bring in a new trend related to surfing, I guess. Eugene says, yeah, I agree with you. Worldwide, all around the world, it's a big trend, but I think it's only been relatively recent that it's really picked up in Korea. If you say relatively, you're saying that, compared to other countries. So relatively means in relation to or in comparison to something. Now, this is when you compare two or more things. So he says, worldwide, it's a big trend. It's a huge trend. It's very trendy and popular, but I think it's only been relatively recent, quite recent, okay, quite recent that it's really picked up in Korea, that it's become popular or trendy in Korea. The problem here is, I don't think we have massive waves. Massive meaning huge, great, big waves. And also, the temperature of the north part of the coast is obviously quite cold. So these are some problems he is talking about. And the further south you go, the waves aren't so good. So he says the problem here, meaning in Korea, it's difficult to surf in Korea because of these problems. There aren't many places with big, massive waves, and sometimes it can be too cold, and sometimes, well, the waves aren't really good, meaning some areas you will rarely have any waves to actually surf on. You need some waves to surf, right? So he's saying maybe Korea isn't the best place to surf. Now, Mary says, yeah, is there anywhere that has good waves? We're talking about good waves in terms of size, okay, big waves. Well, I think it sort of varies. It differs. It depends on where you go. And there are people who are on Jeju and Busan who go surfing. Let's take a look at this sentence. Okay, he's talking about people who are in Jeju and Busan who go surfing. But you may wonder, why is it on Jeju and not in Jeju? Well, when you're talking about people in a certain location or at a place, you would say in Busan, in Daegu, in Seoul. That is correct. But some people say that grammatically when you talk about Jeju Island, because it is an island, you should say on Jeju. Okay, I do believe that is probably proper, more proper. So that is why Eugene said on Jeju and not in Jeju. You can use in or on when you talk about islands. But if you were to say in Busan, you would say in Busan, not on Busan. Once again, there are people who are on Jeju and in Busan who go surfing. That would be correct. I think part of the fun is just being with other people, being with your friends or being with other people who are into the same thing. Here, into is what? You're not going into a certain place, but if you say you are into something, it means you are interested in something. You like it. So in other words, he says, it's fun. The fun part is being with other people who like the same thing as you, who are into the same thing as you. Okay, moving on. Right, she says, enjoy the outdoors and the ocean. It's nice to be with people who enjoy the outdoors and the ocean like you. And he agrees. He says, totally, absolutely. Okay, that brings us to an end to the conversation. Let's take a listen to it one more time.
Water sports are becoming really popular in Korea. I'm wondering when people will start surfing.
Well, it's funny you say that because it seems to have really picked up as a trend with the young people these days. I've seen lots of shops springing up in Gangwon-do, for example.
Okay.
I think it's become really trendy.
What kind of surfing? Just regular standard surfing? Because I know there's different things you can do. You can do windsurfing with kind of like a mini sail, and then there's kite surfing. What kind of surfing are they doing?
I think it's a straight up, normal board surfing where, you're just getting one person gets up on a board and goes up on a wave. I'm not so sure about the other forms, But definitely the shops I've sort of been through, they seem to have a lot of boards on for sale, and the whole sort of mini culture, mini underground culture of people wanting to surf.
Right, because surfing culture is quite huge. I mean, it's dynamic. There's music that's surfing music, there's style and everything like that. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of influences the style of clothing, whether music taste changes or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, worldwide it's a big trend, but I think it's only been relatively recently that it's sort of really picked up in Korea.
Right.
The problem here is I don't think we have massive waves.
Right.
But and also the temperature up the north part of the coast is obviously quite cold, and the further south you go, the waves aren't so good, I heard.
Yeah, is there anywhere that has good waves? Or?
Well, I think it sort of varies. There are some good parts. I mean, there are people who are even on Jeju and Busan who go surfing, but I don't know quite the quality of it. But I think the part of the fun is just being with other people who are into the same thing.
Right, enjoying the outdoors and the ocean.
Totally.
Welcome back, everyone. Are you ready for today's actual expressions? Okay, I hear a yes. Let's take you into it then. Here we go with some vocab words. We've got surfing, since it is our topic for today's lesson. Surfing, you all know what it is, but just to check out the pronunciation, it's surfing. Surfing. What about straight up? Straight up. Stress goes on up. Straight up means honest, trustworthy, or genuine. So think of honest if you can't remember the definition of straight up. Now, straight up is used especially when you want to emphasize that you are being honest about something. Okay, straight up. Okay, moving on to dynamic. Dynamic. We're talking about something that is energetic, active, powerful, or even lively. So dynamic basically means that it pertains to force or power or even energy. Think about those words, okay? Force, power, energy. And relatively, stress goes on the first syllable, relatively. Relatively. This is especially used when you are making a comparison. Okay, now in comparison to something, in relation to something else, you would use relatively. Almost, nearly, somewhat. Okay, it's somewhat nicer than so-and-so. It's relatively nicer than so-and-so. See, you're making a comparison between something and something else. So you would use relatively. Okay, let's move on to the first pattern for today. Pick up. Pick up. Now, in today's actual talk, pick up did not mean to actually grab something from the floor or the ground and raise it up with your hand or any other thing. We're talking about how something could grow, develop, increase, or especially begin or start after a pause. Okay, here is a sample sentence. The trend is beginning to pick up in Korea. The trend is beginning to pick up in Korea, meaning it's beginning to what? It's beginning to grow, develop, increase. In other words, it's beginning to become popular in Korea. It's picking up. The trend is beginning to pick up in Korea. We should hurry. The wind is starting to pick up. Okay. As I told you earlier, pick up can also mean to become stronger. Okay, so in this case, we're saying, hey, we should hurry up. The wind is starting to pick up. The wind is starting to pick up, meaning the wind is starting to get stronger and stronger. It can also mean to become faster. Okay, well, the competition is beginning to pick up means it's becoming very, intense. Sometimes you can say, well, his speed is picking up, meaning his speed is getting faster and faster. Okay, let's move on to spring up. Spring up means to come into existence, to open up sometimes. All right, so here we go. Love sprang up from friendship. Love sprang up from friendship. It developed from friendship. So spring up in this case doesn't mean to open. In today's actual talk, we were talking about these surf shops or surfing shops, how they are springing up in Gangwon-do, meaning they're opening up in Gangwon-do. But in this sentence, it means to grow or develop. Okay, love sprang up from friendship. Love developed from friendship. This is where it started. Okay, that is all for today's oh, there's one more. Sorry. Okay. You can also talk about how businesses open up. So brunch places are springing up around my office. Okay. In this sentence, it means to open up. Okay. Establish. Now, firms, companies, shops, they can all open up. Okay. Begin business. So you can say brunch places or restaurants that sell brunch are springing up, opening up around my office. Okay, that's our final sample sentence. Job well done, everyone.